Hello, everyone. You're listening to Truth Cat Radio at truthcatradio.com. The current time is 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast, USA. I myself am broadcasting from Chicago, USA. My name is Richard Kary, and this is Beyond the Matrix. Well, thank you for tuning in today. We're going to be joined today by an interesting gentleman from Australia, Jeff Tate, and he's going to be contributing to the discussion. Going to start the interview in just a moment here. I did first want to mention to all you listeners out there that we are completely listener supported here at Truth Cat Radio. We are not monetizing in any way. We don't allow any sort of corporate advertising. All our archives are free. And so that being said, we're completely supported by you, the listeners. We have a support page which accepts PayPal. A lot of people like the convenient, relatively secure method of transfer PayPal offers. And any little bit helps in the independent media here. No donation is ever too small. A lot of times those small donations are a lot of what keeps things running. A lot of months it can be difficult, and I know you have to divide any support you do give to perhaps quite a few different sources out there that you do appreciate. But if you can't keep Truth Cat Radio in mind, help keep everything going here. We have a lot of great shows and topics, a lot of great hosts and guests, and we believe very much in uncensored, independent transfer of information and ideas, opinions, and supporting free speech. It doesn't come without the continued support of the listener base. So please donate whatever you can. We really, really do appreciate it, and it really helps. We just got a new upgrade, actually, to our system here. We're actually operating with a new server, much better quality. The sound is just much better, and already we're noticing far less issues, and we do help. I mean, we do appreciate that it was with your help, that was able to be possible, that we were able to stay on here for the next month or so, at least, and hopefully with your continued support, we can keep things coming to you. Okay, well, thank you for that. And getting back to our guest, yes, we do have Jeff Tate here with us, residing in Australia. He's joining us to discuss the perceptions within our society and how the public has been responding to increasing propaganda from the corporate media. Jeff is a blogger and has been a longtime analyst of the independent media. And hello, is your connection still good there, Jeff?
Yes, I'm here. It's good to be with you, Richard, and your listeners tonight.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And yeah, your connection sounds great. You were mentioning just some issues, from your region with internet, but it sounds good. It sounds good so far.
Well, that's good to know. Our NBN national broadband network must be working fine then. It's been a lot of contention about that lately.
Okay. All right. And the station keeps East Coast U.S. time, so that'll be like 8 p.m. I'm in Chicago, so it's 7 p.m. where I am. It's about 12 hours ahead of where you are, right? It's about like 7, 8 in the morning.
Yeah, it's 8 a.m. So we kind of are linking up because of daylight savings in America now. So it's a lot easier to tell the time. Usually, I think the normal time is UTC. It's about 8 p.m. over there. So it's 8 a.m. here.
All right. Okay. Well, I was just checking out more of your your website and some of your videos. Just yesterday and today. I like a lot of what you've been posting, and I do appreciate a lot. I do appreciate a lot of your opinions too. it's really great. I mean, you have a great attitude toward getting information and more opinions out there is what I get from it, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's the idea. Like I've been watching so many people on YouTube and on Talkback Radio, but there is not enough people doing it in Australia, and so I always thought, maybe it's not for me, maybe I'm not the person, but I'm just throwing myself out there now because it's just cut to the point where you have to say something, you have to speak up.
And just to let the listeners know, your main website is the Opened Mind. Isn't that right? So that's THEOPEN. Okay, THEOPENEDMIND .biz. Correct?
That's right. .biz. They taught me into it.
And yeah, I noticed. Well, you like to cover a lot of topics in the material you have on your website there. I noticed you even were bringing up a rather personal issue that was affecting Alex Jones lately. All of us in the independent media can't help but be aware of Alex, and yeah, I was just found it curious that you felt the need to bring that issue up. I don't know. Is it basically people are digging at dirt into people's personal life rather distastefully? This is basically the impression you have.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, people's lives in the public life have always been their personal things have been splashed across the newspapers and magazines all the time. But when I woke up and I saw Stephen Colbert's little skit that he does, I mean, it's fine. Like, comedy to me is probably the best form of communication that we have. But when it comes to things like a child custody battle, so Alex Jones is like, there was a chance he was going to lose his kids, and that kind of thing it just crosses a line for me, and especially when someone like Stephen Colbert has a national, and really it's an international broadcast to millions and millions of people every night. So he's got a lot of influence, and he's using that to attack someone who's just about to lose their kids. So thankfully, I watched Alex Jones's press conference where he gave it to the media once again. It's brilliant. But he informed us that he still has 50-50 custody with his wife. So that obviously is really good. That's something that we like to see in Australia for a lot more people, but unfortunately it's a lot slanted to the female side, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, no, that is good to hear at least. And yeah, it's definitely a case of hitting below the belt, as it were. Very, very distasteful to do something like that. So yeah, I'm glad you point that out. Regardless of someone's views or motives, that there are just certain places, even the mafia, feels you shouldn't go after the family. It's just an unspoken rule.
That's right. There is a line. There has to be. And it's not about crossing the line and then there's violence or anything. It's about it's just about having class, basically. But then again, there's another development with Stephen Colbert right now, which is what the hashtag called Fire Colbert. But I don't agree with that either. There's a lot of the people that I watch and follow online, especially like at the Donald on Reddit. There's so many people that want to try and get Colbert fired. Now, what they're doing, they're trying to give the left a taste of their own medicine, but I think they've chosen the wrong battle. This battle, I think, is going to leave a bad taste in their mouth, because it's kind of, they're saying he's been homophobic with his joke, but it's not a homophobic joke. So they're latching onto something that only SJWs really try and do. They pick apart anything that they can possibly find and try to get someone fired in real life for it. So that means no more money coming in, so you can't pay your rent, you can't pay your bills, you have to go and live in your car, or you have to go live with your family, just because you said something on Facebook, or you have an opinion that's different to someone who's gone to university and learnt that humanity is rubbish. So yeah, I don't really agree with getting Colbert fired. I think he should be on the air, free speech for everyone. He should be allowed to say whatever he wants to say, except, don't cross the personal family line. That's a bit far.
Right.
Double standards, I guess.
And well, I heard you bring up class a few moments ago. Regarding just what is, over the line or not. And well, when you bring up class, I can't help but lead me to think of Keck. Now, I know you've had quite a bit that you've contributed to the world of Keck and your and your videos. I found a lot of it quite to my liking. I think
It's grabbed
stuff.
hold of me too.
So I don't know, maybe and some people, it varies a lot out there. I mean, some people have no idea what this is whatsoever, this whole phenomena of Keck. So maybe you could explain it to the listeners, just for someone who needs an introduction to Keck in general to start.
Well, sure, I can explain it the way I understand it, and it's a way of describing. There's many ways of understanding Keck, of course, but it's a way of describing how life is basically magical. So a lot of people like to look into synchronicity and how things just coincidences happen, and then either bad things can align and happen that way, or good things can happen. But people notice synchronicity in their lives, and I'm starting to realize, I think maybe Keck is a very good way of describing how very good things can happen. We've been under the control of Molech and nasty, dark, evil forces for a long time now, and I think Keck is starting to be the resistance to that. It might go back to ancient Egypt. There has been evidence of ancient frog worship, and even possible time travel, because back in ancient Egypt there's hieroglyphics of people, ancient Egyptians, using ancient computers. And so this kind of thing, when you think about ancient Egypt, and if there's connections to the present day, then of course it's very mystical, and you need to study it more. So Keck.
And then
it actually go ahead.
Well, and then Keck as a symbol and a philosophy, it seems to have been grabbed hold by a lot of people on the alt-right. How do you explain that to people who don't understand, that association? Because it just enrages a lot of people on the left, and a lot of people on the right just love it all the more because of that, sharing with each other and all.
Absolutely, it's become like it's become part of the movement. So I'm not sure what the movement really honestly is, because it's a whole lot of different people searching for freedom, I guess. But Keck has definitely helped a lot of people enjoy really searching for the truth and watching the truth come out in the mainstream over the last couple of years. Like, it's been exploding over the last decade. I know that because that's how long I've been paying attention for. But the last 2 years with Trump and the movement and the alt-right coming out, truth has really exploded. And I think when we see things like the way Trump plays his 4D chess with his enemies, that's basically why enjoy watching.
Yeah, no, that subject can go a lot of directions. Well, I know Trump really seemed to concentrate a lot of the things people wanted, and were dissatisfied with, with the current system in this country, in America here. But I mean, there are a lot of ways that it already seems like he's going against, a lot of the things he campaigned on. And so, I mean, especially like with like the international policy being a lot more in line with the war agenda, than what he claimed when he was campaigning, which is to focus on, on just an inward rebuilding of the country, as it were. But I don't know. So what do you think about that? I mean, just the kind of directions he's been taking so far since he's been in office.
Yeah, it can be troubling and worrying, definitely. But I think it's because we're playing such high stakes poker here, and I think a lot of the reason is we came to really identify with Donald Trump, especially people that watched his rallies back before he was president. I think we can we like to tell ourselves that we know him a lot better than other politicians, and he seems to be a good guy. Seems to be a good person with a huge family that I see him as he's the patriarch of his family. He looks at them and he says, I want to make sure that they have a great life just like I've had. So I'm at the end of my life and I have an opportunity now to jump into this level of politics and really do something that's good for my family and good for humanity. But and then of course he won, and now he's hiring people that we have come to see as globalists and Council on Foreign Relations. A lot of the people that were involved, not sure the exact people, but they were involved with 9/11, all kinds of dirty tricks in the Middle East. And so, yeah, we have our backs up and we're wondering, why are you hiring people like this? But then again, Washington has been a swamp and it's been under the control of the globalists for a long, long time. I mean, if you want a date, you can go back to when the Federal Reserve was, the legislation was passed in Congress and then that was created. That's a really good date to look at from when America was just completely under control of globalism, or at least starting to set it up. So it's been a long time. It's been like 100 years. So trying to turn the ship around and get back in the saddle, take the reins, go back to what America's supposed to be, the free country, that the leader of the world. And I say that as an Australian. I understand that America's the leader of the free world, and Australia is a close ally, but we're still a little under the control of royal family. But just to go back to wondering whether Trump is going to betray us or not, and I think this is the craziest thing for someone like me to say, who's been a conspiracy theorist for 10 years, but it is actually time to have a little bit of faith. If you want to study the man, study him standing in front of thousands of people, being himself and just going off script, not saying what the speech is on his teleprompter. Just watch some of his rallies and see what kind of a man he is. And the people around him as well. He's got lots of friends that are being interviewed, like Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi. If you want to know more about Donald Trump, go and listen to what Jerome Corsi has to say about him. He's been his friend for over 40 years. So, yeah. And also, I think what a lot of people are missing is it's only been just over 100 days. So he's got at least 4 years hope he's got 8 because I believe in the man. But we need to take a good look at this in a year's time, and hopefully he'll be able to work some of his anti-globalism magic.
Yes, and a lot of people have also suggested that there's only so much, influence that one person can have. That there's only so much that the president has control over, and something like the foreign policy with these war agendas is, basically above his pay grade. I mean, that he's already been through the stages of being sat down after being sworn in and told, listen, there are certain things that are run by, unspoken, people in the shadows, basically, and we all take our marching orders here in Congress and in the White House just as anyone else.
That's right. Can you imagine how many talks like that he's had from different people just walking into the White House and trying to tell him what he has to do next? This is how it really works, Donald.
Yeah, I
then
can't.
He turns around. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. I could really only imagine. I'm sure any of us, just how much one has to deal with of that sort of thing when they get into this sort of a role as U.S. president. Like what you're
That's
speculating.
Right.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, there we are.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like the Bill Hicks skit, isn't it? You get to become president, then you go into the smoky room, and the old men with cigars come and put the screen down, and then the projector goes on, and you see a camera angle of the JFK assassination that you've never seen before. So, and then they put the screen up and they say, "Do you have any questions? We are the government. This is what you're going to do now." So it's like there's always the government workers that stay behind after every administration change, and those are the people that they are not all the deep state, but the deep state is within those people that always stay in government for 30, 40, 50 years.
And I look at all of the just the propaganda that we're being fed now, as far as the impressions we're supposed to have on international policy. I mean, Trump's, were to assume, given directives, from above, how things are to proceed in Syria, how things are to proceed with now North Korea and Ukraine, all of these agendas. And he's just a talking head for a lot of these foreign policies. Is the impression that a lot of us are getting. But well, I mean, it's ridiculous.
I see how people can really actually be turned off by what he's doing right now and what he's saying. I actually think that he always said he was going to work with everyone. He doesn't want to push anyone away. He's going to try and work with everyone, because that's how you get deals done. You have to have both parties or all parties happy with something about the deal. So you have to work with people. But the problem is, no, that's not the problem. The great thing about it is that we've always had globalists working with globalists. Always. And now we have a nationalist, an American, an actual American that loves America and freedom.
Well,
the White House.
Well, but now it seems like he doesn't fully understand or appreciate the definition of these terms. I mean, Trump was just quoted about a week ago saying that I'm a nationalist and a globalist. I mean, this one gentleman, Ramsey Paul, made a response on Twitter saying, "Oh, and I'm a meat-eating vegetarian." I mean, they're fundamentally conflicting terms, and in that sense. And I don't know if Trump gets it. I think he's just too much of a businessman, where you can't please all the people all the time if you really want to make change, and that so that he might be too much of a businessman to a fault in that regard.
Absolutely. I think that's where that comment definitely came from, is, like I was saying, he's trying to work with everyone, even the globalists, and he's trying to say, look, I can be both, and I can make the best deal for both parties. That's the way I look at it, and obviously it's on faith that I take him as from the good side. And that's because I'm not in the White House. I'm not even in Washington or America. I can't speak to him. I don't know what he's doing every day, you know? So all I can, and it's so disconcerting to hear, I'm a globalist. That is probably the worst thing he could have ever said. But I have to trust in his skills as a 4D chess player. I have to. And obviously, if he starts going on television and talking just complete globalism, then that is what will make me turn off, definitely. But at the moment, I trust that he's feeling his way through this new position that he has, as that all the world leaders call him. It's quite a different position to have, but I guess I'm trying to say that I will give him a bit more time before I judge him on that one.
Right. And then, well, I mean, there's still a lot of energy over this wall issue. They just turned down funding for the wall when they voted on spending the other day, and that's still a major sticking point. Is a lot of people were concerned about this physical wall being built on the southern border, as opposed to just changing policies to bring jobs back, to keep things more in favor of the the legal citizens rather than the people who are here illegally. But I don't know. I mean, there's just everything seems to branch off, with separate agendas, and in the media, I mean, there's just so much propaganda toward any and every point of view and agenda that
absolutely.
So, sometimes they cross paths and overlap, and that's when sometimes you get more of an influence one way or the other. But it seems that there isn't really a single goal with any of these people. I am amazed at how much it's becoming clear to everyone that the corporate media is a complete farce, just based on how much Trump, is being opposed by the corporate media, to a level we've never seen with former presidents. And I think that just is, pulling the wool off of people's eyes, so to speak. Who used to trust what they heard on television in the past a lot more.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of the reasons why Donald Trump became so popular, because the mainstream media, the corporate media, was the dinosaur media. They were attacking him on everything after they realized he was actually running for president. They gave him a lot of coverage at the start because usually it's a joke or he's just trying to promote himself, and it was, he does it really good, but they gave him a lot of coverage, and then it turned out he's actually is running. Oh no, we've started his campaign for him. Oh no. But like living in Australia, we live in basically Disneyland when it comes to media. We don't have, we have some outlets that are conservative at least, but we really don't have much of a different opinion coming out over the media. When you turn on the radio and the television, it's all the same, and it's basically Disneyland level propaganda. So we'll hear all about Donald Trump's phone call with our Prime Minister, and how Donald Trump got angry with him and hung up on him over a refugee deal that was made a year ago. But that's it. That's all we'll hear. We won't hear anything else.
I was I was fascinated as just how far the propaganda can go. I mean, I was just trying to fill up with petrol for my vehicle the other day, and these little televisions now come on. When you start pumping the fuel on some of the machines,
no.
and it's mentioning the story of some Asian American professor. It's saying that he was over in North Korea and he tried to topple the North Korean government. No explanation of how. We're just supposed to believe that this private, that this U.S. Citizen tried to do this, and that it has now, they say, suffice to say, has ramped up tensions and hostilities between North Korea and the U.S. I mean, these are the kind of tactics that they're trying to go to just get the American people just keen on the idea of toppling another country in place, installing another puppet regime. I don't know, it's pretty obvious.
I think that maybe the enemies of the Trump administration believe that they can still make world events, orchestrate world events around him, and then he's just going to have to react to them. So if they can start a war in North Korea, or if they can start a world war, Donald Trump, they think, is just going to react to it, so he can't do anything about it.
We're actually hearing we're hearing some of that from I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Craig Roberts. I believe he was during the Reagan administration and Reagan and Bush era in the White House formerly.
Yeah, I have listened to him on Alex Jones' show.
Yeah. I mean, I hear he's now coming out saying that the U.S. military and the higher ups are actually contemplating nuclear war with Russia and China, and this is all about currency war, of course. And it's just insane, I mean, if this is true. But even the hostility they've been trying to build up toward Iran has been building for years, and it's all about currency. There's a great video out there called "All Wars Are Bankers' Wars," and I'm sure from your research you could agree with this as well.
Absolutely, that's one of the places that you start when you start researching. You learn about the banksters and how they push wars to control populations. What's the Rothschild quote? Give me control over a nation's currency, and I'll control the people, along those lines. So yeah, the banksters.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a lot of basically private interests, that motivate everything. I know you've spoken out a lot against just a lot of the companies as well, like Monsanto. I know you've mentioned a bit. You've kept up with a lot of what's gone on with them.
Yeah, that's right. They I mean, when I think of Monsanto, I just think of Terminator seeds straight away. So they're the type of company that will sell seeds that grow food, but it only grows food for a year, and then the plant kills itself. So you have to come back to Monsanto and buy more seeds from them. So basically, if Monsanto disappears and they're the only people that make seeds or sell seeds, then seeds are only going to last for another year. They're the type of company that will manipulate life itself to make a profit. And one of the major things that I really dislike about it, I believe that Australia's just coming into the medical cannabis market industry, and I believe that our government will only buy the seeds or tell people who want to get into the industry that you have to buy your seeds from Monsanto. I'm not completely 100% on that, but that's very troubling to me.
Wow, you hear that, everyone? Stock up on your non-GMO cannabis seeds now.
That's right. No, don't get in trouble.
Oh, that is very disturbing, though, for the future. I mean, they are trying to control, the genetics of all life on the planet, in the future, basically. And I mean, if all plant life is affected, I mean, there's no real going away. If reverting back, if a certain field I know has been infected with GMO crops, they can slash and burn everything in like 3 years time. After that, they can grow again with non-GMO or something like that. But I mean, yeah, if you lose
so it takes
all
about
of your
3
crop,
years to make the soil better,
Mhm.
good enough for non-GMO.
But you can lose, just entire species, that are non-GMO
Right.
as time goes on. The more they spread this over the planet. I don't know. It's yeah, it's definitely a very disturbing trend. Just the amount that they're even changing the genetics on the planet.
That's it. It might be going too far, and they have no idea. There's no testing for this. You can't test it. You just have to release it and hope it doesn't wreck everything. But they're doing it with fish and animals, crossing different animals together to try and get different products they can sell. Like, we've got enough products, believe me.
Mhm.
We've got everything we need. We don't need to make mutated fish that might give us cancer if we eat it. Like,
And well, of the different topics that have been, coming through the independent media lately, like what other areas, related areas that would you say you've been keeping an eye on?
well, I guess one of the big things right now is the rise of anti-fascist groups going to protests and just trying to be disruptive. Really, I think that's what they want to do to society. They're not really sure what they want. I believe.
Well,
I guess
I do see the far left taking the center, or at least they're trying to make it seem like it's the center norm for everyone in the way it's propagated in the corporate media, and it's attacking freedom of speech in the name of being against hate, basically, right?
that's right. Yeah. Are you against a bad thing? Yeah, I'm against bad things. Well, then you're one of us. It's a bit ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I mean,
I understand. Go ahead.
Oh no, please.
Well, I was just going to say, I think I kind of understand how people can come to join Antifa groups, because once you're disconnected from people around you, then it's very easy to get picked up by an angry message. I mean, I remember feeling like the overwhelming presence of a worldwide conspiracy back in the day, maybe 10 years ago. I felt like I was living under a semi-dictatorship and no one could see or do anything about it. But everyone would laugh at me, and the television would crush anyone who talked about what I wanted to talk about. But I wished and hoped that people would wake up to how they're being controlled and screwed over. But then Trump happened, and now all the people I wished before that would wake up and pay attention, they're running around saying they're living under a dictator and they've watched Star Wars Rogue One and now they're part of the resistance and they're going to fight now and stand up. But I see it really as the globalist New World Order plan from the whole time. They always knew that their works they perpetrated in the dark would have to come to light in order for their plan to be finalized. They always knew that their real enemy is the Age of Awakening, which we're living in right now. And their only hope was to co-opt the awakening and misguide it off in the wrong direction. So, yeah, we live under a dictatorship. We've had a Hitler in the highest office of president. But we've had those things for a long, long time now, and you've only just realized it, Antifa. Trump was the revolution that you're all marching for, I believe. And Obama and Bush and Clinton, they were the Hitlers. They just didn't scream and shout. They were calm. So I really like the name of your show, Richard, Beyond the Matrix. It's clearly a show that the people who've broken out of the Matrix can listen to. But how long does it take to break out of the Matrix? People can be woken up, but then that starts their own personal journey to discover the truth about all the things they were taught were wrong throughout their lives. Like 10 years ago when I was 21, I came across Alex Jones and David Icke and Michael Tsarian, and from there I went off to discover for myself what the world was about. I went to protests and I hung out with socialists. I went to a few Antifa-like groups, and I was angry enough to think, yeah, something should be done, and if we have to get violent, then yeah, that's what we have to do. But by that point, I couldn't even speak to any family members or friends who tried to tell me that I was on the wrong track. Luckily, I recognize that violence is definitely not the answer, and protesting means really nothing. But I understand the need for people to join Antifa and other groups to find out for themselves. So yeah, I see trying to get beyond the Matrix the same as how David Icke does. We're underwater and our minds are slow and clogged with all the things we have to remember to be a good citizen. To wake up and be ourselves, you have to start swimming up. And we might not even know which way we're swimming because the water's so murky and dark, but at least we're not just sinking further down into the depths. So I guess my point is a lot of these people protesting and joining Antifa are trying to figure out our world, and they're basically alone with zero helpful people around to explain how the Antifa groups take advantage of their anger. Yes, our world is not how it should be. Yes, you're right. Things are bad and we have to help. We've helped to make it bad. But we're trying to turn the ship around now. We are the good guys with love in our hearts, and we actually would rather talk with Antifa people rather than shout things at protests. So I guess I could say those things because I've been to Antifa meetings. They weren't called Antifa back then. I'm not even sure what they were called. I think I was actually at an office that was called The Resistance. It was a socialist place, but I had no idea what socialism was when I was 21. And I didn't want to know because I found out about the left-right paradigm, and I decided to throw the left and the right, both throw them away. That's just another religion for people. So it's going to control me and tell me what to think. But as I got older, I realized actually by not looking into what left and right and religion and not researching everything I possibly could, I was actually being co-opted myself with my beliefs into a lot of leftist thinking, and because they take advantage of anger. And it's basically, yeah, there's no knowledge, there's just anger, there's just emotion, and that's what they play off.
And there's a lot of programming.
That's where
there's also, I was going to say, a lot of programming, even through the entertainment industry as well, from the left. You know, there's a lot of influence we don't realize subconsciously. But no, you.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I mentioned Star Wars Rogue One. That movie was basically just get out and protest, go to the Women's March. That's what that movie was, basically. We're a ragtag group of social justice warriors, and we're going to take down the evil empire of Trump.
Yeah, and then even in your references, you know, to characters from the recent past that were, you say like Hitler's, or that would even be more, you know, what the official story of the demonized account of what you know, was claimed that Hitler was. I mean, as opposed to really when you do further research and you find that, you know, a lot of that history actually has been modified, you know, to suit the victors. But no, I mean, I get your point, you know, nonetheless. I mean, you know, those sort of extreme a sort of totalitarian rules. But I mean, we're getting so close to everything being opposite. It's just really ridiculous. So you mentioned the Antifa and just a lot of these different influential groups, and you've seen it firsthand. So you've kind of explored when you were a bit younger, some of that far left, and then realized it wasn't right. But abandoning everything ultimately wasn't right either. You found, and that is significant. You can't help but then lead to the combination that we're finding now a lot in the culture. That being the combination of these far left think tanks and corporations, and a lot of it in the form of these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations like George Soros. It has been recently counted as no less than 187 different non-governmental organizations throughout the world, and a lot of countries are catching on and are banning all of his NGOs in their countries. Unfortunately, I don't think we can expect that in the U.S. here, but no, it's just ridiculous.
It's surprising what a whole heap of gold teeth can pay for, isn't it?
No, that just the conditioning of the youth is just so extreme these days, and I don't know if you have most of your interaction online in recent years, or also just from your your time growing up, your local neighborhoods, and the people you've known in person as well. If you want to comment to the listeners regarding Australia, but I don't know how much polarization you've seen. As there's been more propaganda to lean either far left, as what's expected for the PC social justice warrior crowd, or to just finally reject all of it and say there's a problem here.
Yeah, that's right. In Australia, it's I can't say I can't really compare to America, but I can say in Australia that the propaganda is very powerful. We are terrified of being seen as racist, just absolutely terrified in Australia. So if anything seems like it's at all racist, at all, then everyone will stay well away from it, and they'll get angry at people who want to look at it, not even talk about it. Just, hey, I want to go check that out. I can't believe you're looking at that. It's really crippling, and yeah, that is what pushes you to the left, because the left is the safe space. If you're one of these people, then you're actually standing up. You recognize that the whole country is completely, fully racist, and you're trying to make it better for minorities, when really the whole point of the free Western world is to have, there are no minorities. There's supposed to be just the free people of the country. We don't have the same kind of constitution that you do, but we have our own one. There's no First Amendment, but when we're not completely fascist yet, but we do have a lot of anti-terrorism laws. We have our own Patriot Act that came in actually the same time, I think, as your Patriot Act. We call them anti-terrorism laws, and they are very wide-reaching. And people that read about them, that's what stopped a lot of people from speaking up, because they just think, especially back in 2005 and that time, people thought, if I start speaking up, I'm liable to disappear to a secret court and not be heard from again. I'm not even allowed to report on my case in the media. So that's the law. And now we have a thing called the Racial Discrimination Act. Actually, I'm not sure how old it is, but it's been around for a while. They call it 18C because that's the section of the act that is really troubling. And it's basically a hate speech law. So if you are considered to be offending someone racially, or if you're full of hate, I guess, because it's so vague, the wording, that if someone has a complaint against you, then basically you're guilty. So no one wants to talk. It's really is 1984 on the books. It's not completely in society yet, but 1984 is coming.
There's one thing that I think that Australia and the U.S. do have in common when you mention it is, well, with regard to racial issues, that they do both have that curious nature, because we'll find a lot of double standards in the media and what is permitted or not. There are a lot of anti-white sort of hate speech operatives that go unpunished, or even propagated and encouraged in a lot of the corporate media. I don't know. There seems to be a very strong sense of double standards that's even emerging, and I don't know. It's very bizarre because you'll find it everywhere. You find it in parts of Europe and here in America. But what I was going to say about our countries is they do differ. As the nationalism grows in a response to globalism, it's not necessarily a negative thing to embrace, your people, your culture, your ethnicity, your race, to press back, as a nation, and no one shames any other cultures for doing that. If you have someone in Tibet or in some African country or say the Japanese or something. But, it's, of course, being shamed right now with the push away from globalism and away from the EU. A great deal of shame put on Europeans for them to embrace their heritage, their nationalism, when it's really what can help save them and keep people sovereign and independent, and the best thing for them. So there's a very strong propaganda against that, but those nations have at least that history. The British people, for one example, the French, the German, the Swedish, they've been in these regions for hundreds of years, thousands. And then when it comes to Australia and United States, it's of course a bit different, So that we don't have that sort of nationalist. So therefore, people on the alt-right, they only, they only go so far a lot of times in their principles, it seems, in these countries, as opposed to in Europe, where they can get far more, all encompassing, I suppose, in it affecting their views, their viewpoints, political philosophy, and just seeing how the left and right paradigm can work for or against the people. The left clearly is against the family unit and the nationhood as a way of making everyone on their own to fend off against the state. They don't have any of those bonds that they would to help each other financially, emotionally, in whatever ways. So I don't know, but I see, in the U.S. and in Australia, just people on the right getting lost along the way. When they find the alt-right and are trying to seek where they stand on each issue, because that there isn't as much potential. It's easier to get seen as a racist in a sense, if you embrace too many alt-right views in Australia or in the U.S., whereas in Europe, it's hard to really complain if you're embracing being Swedish or embracing being German or French or British, Yeah, we just don't have as much history, any people of any ethnicity here. And so nationalism to fight globalism, it's, I don't know, it's kind of hard to get off the ground in our countries. You see what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It's a real stigma to want to even know your family history, like back past a few hundred years. Even in this country, if you know your past, that means, I'm what I'm saying is, if I have found out that my generations have been in Australia since anyone came, since.
I'm sorry, Jeff. It looks like I went over a bit. We need to do our 5-minute station break. If you could just mute your mic.
No problem.
We'll jump back in 5 minutes.
I wasn't paying attention. I was actually eating. I have this little rotisserie chicken and a big old piece of bread. Sorry. All right, guys. Excuse me. You're listening to Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com, and this is Beyond the Matrix. But about in an hour after this will be Stephen D. Kelly Show. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you are. That'll be it for the live broadcasting until we come back on Monday with Shima Moore. Oh, and the dog. Shut up, dog. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern. After Shima at 10 p.m. is John of Angels with Angel Essence. And on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. we have Daryl with Daryl Nichols. And after Daryl at 10 p.m. is Dave Robbins with Mystic Freedom. Wednesdays we have Mars Madness with Mars Theron at 8. And Freedom of Joyce with Terry Joyce at 10. And we come back on Thursday with David Simpson at Donbass Hour at 4. Graham Simpson with Delete the Beast at 6. And, of course, Beyond the Matrix at 8 p.m. Followed by the Stephen D. Kelly Show, of course. I need to remind everybody that we are 100% listener support, so please, if you can, drop something into our PayPal to help us pay for these wonderful new features that we're offering. It's so exciting. I just can't wait. I feel like, wow, Richard, we're really taking off now. But anyway, it's nice to have uninterrupted service, and there's a lot of cool features, so we'll be able to expand nicely. Anyway, very happy about that. Also, if you guys would all help us out by sharing this stuff on Facebook, that would be a big plus. Also, if you can, if you want to join the chat room, it's open. Okay, you just got to go in there and register your screen name. And if you want to call in, the phone number is 714-598-3125. That's area code 714-598-3125. If you're listening by YouTube, don't call in, okay? But, if you're listening live, obviously. But if you are listening on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and a nice comment and share it with your friends, okay? Once again, this is Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. Thank you for being here. And we are back with Beyond the Matrix.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And you are listening to Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. And today we have Jeff Tate with us. He's a blogger, and he's been an analyst in the independent media for a number of years. And you can check out his website, and the address for that would be theopenedmind.biz, theopenedmind.biz. Check out more of his work. We tried to have about a 5-minute break. I know we cut it a little short there. But everyone out there, if you can, please help out, as Stephen said, and support us with whatever you can. When you do have a bit of spare change now and then, it really does make a difference to keep everyone and everything going here. Hello, are you back with us yet, Jeff?
I'm with you, Richard.
Okay, great. Sorry if we didn't give you too much of a break there.
No problem. I have my coffee. I'm sorted out.
Yeah, all right, great. And it sounds like you might be interested in contributing more to Truth Cat Radio on a regular basis.
That sounds like a great idea.
All
I'd
right.
love
Well,
to be able to talk about the news.
oh no, that sounds great. Yeah, it sounds like Stephen is interested in extending that. So yeah, it sounds like a great idea. We look forward to having you on board. We do have a pretty nice diversity, people from a lot of backgrounds and a lot of parts of the globe. So yeah, it'll be nice to add you to that. I'm sorry, what was the town again that you're located in?
I'm in Perth. That's
Okay.
Western Australia.
All right. And you were just bringing up Australia in response to my saying, it's easier to be disillusioned in United States and Australia in the far right. When you get to the topic of nationalism and us being in foreign lands to begin with. And I don't know, you were going somewhere leading off from that topic and bringing up Australia. Did you remember where you were going with that before the break?
Yeah, I'll try to collect my thoughts again. It's kind of I can only speak from my point of view because I have definitely lived a different kind of life. Just in my views from a lot of people in Australia. So I've been disconnected from my extended family history, like in the past. I grew up only knowing basically my immediate family and the people that are alive today, not really knowing much about the past because that's my own fault. A lot to do with school, because I didn't have a very good time in school, so that ended up pushing me away from a family, basically. And then not knowing history is a consequence of that. And then, but actually, it's a lot of good things have happened for me lately. My mother is looking into her family history and finding out a lot of things like coming over on the First Fleet. Like it's a nice idea, and it's good to know your history. But then there's a way of you can identify with your family history a lot, way too much, especially even your racial history, and start thinking that you are part of maybe the white race, or you're part of this country like England, when really you are your own person and you're free to do whatever you want. But getting back to, like, there's a huge stigma of it's hard to say. It's
nationalism,
basically,
right? I mean,
that's it. That's it.
What?
Yeah, nationalism is the way to go. That's the way I look at it. It's the country that you want to be a part of. It's Australia. It's America. We are the free Western world. We the people don't want to go around killing anybody, really, but we do stand up for ourselves and defend ourselves from those people, other people in the world that want to do us harm. But just to say it, like, I have white skin, and it's hard to talk about it because as soon as you say the word white, you're a Nazi. That's the way it's perceived anyway. So
well, what I see on the alt-right, we have every variation of person and their set of stances on given issues about these topics of race and nationhood, and it seems like they'll have some like issues they agree upon, which brought them to something affiliated with the alt-right, so to speak, which has kind of become a catch-all phrase for a lot of things, both in America, Australia, over in Europe. But I mean, yeah. I think there's like every different level and every variation under that umbrella, So
yeah, I've always liked alternative rock, and that's been a huge catch-all phrase for just anything that's not mainstream, basically. So that's the way I look at it. The alt-right, I don't think it's a group at all. I just think it's a name for people that aren't part of the establishment.
Well, I mean, anything, no matter where it comes from, is also grabbed by the corporate media and, the banksters
like
behind
conspiracy theorists.
And it's steered toward their agenda, from then on. Like they did with the term fake news, for example, trying to steer it for it didn't work out too well for them, but they tried, And so, I mean, we have, we have this with the alt-right as well. The corporate media is now breathed a life of its own into, how they try to have it perceived. And they'll, flash and mention that term in association with this, and this. And, have all different people from all walks of life see that and get their impressions of whatever they're trying to perceive to them. And then they can make it seem all associated with hate, for example, maybe more than it actually is. Although some alt-right groups in America, do bring up issues of ethnicity, and they're not afraid to go there. They're portrayed in a way that is completely inaccurate and totally just trying to paint them as hateful and as something that they're not. To steer corporate agendas. It seems like the left has been a vehicle for corporate agendas, and a lot of these catch terms. I just think that in popular culture, alt-right has just become nothing more than that. It's so all-inclusive to cover so many different things now. But like the far left agendas and social justice warrior agendas have been the center stage of what the globalists are pushing, with their corporate money, and that seems to be rather consistent,
Isn't it funny how the leftists with their anti-corporation thoughts? I mean, if you talk to someone from Antifa or basically at a protest, then you'll hear the corporations. And I used to go around saying that all the time, but I didn't really know what I meant. I just thought they were some big unstoppable force that was taking control of my life somehow. And there's a little bit of truth to that, but it's not just corporations to corporations. It's just funny how the left is being funded by some of the biggest corporations, and they don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I wish I had the full list of these 187 non-governmental organizations of George Soros.
I can tell you, Get Up is one that we have. Get Up in Australia, definitely. Change.org, I think, is one.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
They are all over Facebook, and if anyone is looking to get into protesting or going to a march, or anyone's upset with the government and how everything is, just how is everything? Oh, it's all bad. And then you see a post from Get Up that says, the government is doing this to us. Sign this petition. Come out to the march. It's as simple as that. If you have the right things put in front of the right people, then they can take control of their emotions. There's never any knowledge, and there's never any political explanation about this is who this person is. This is who that person is. It's just this person is evil and trying to kill Syrian refugees. We need to bring all the people from Syria to Australia right now so we can save them. And plus, it's our fault that their country's all bad. So we deserve to be taken over by all these refugees. It's basically like real feeling real guilty about just existing, and there's when no one's supposed to be in Australia except for the Indigenous people, and that is a huge issue, huge subject for it's. I'm not sure how it is with the Native Americans in America and other people, but
you're saying that in Australia,
it's similar.
So in Australia, popular opinion lately has been very anti-white, in favor of the Aborigines to retake their land in full.
I'm not. See, that's that's a conclusion. That's a decision that someone has to make, and no one wants to talk.
Yeah, that
about
sounds like
what
South
should
Africa,
happen.
and that didn't go very humanely at all. It doesn't
No
sound...
one's thought that through.
yeah. I've also, for quite a while now, I hear a lot of claims of just a lot of gradual financial takeover coming from China of Australia. What do you know of that?
Concern. Absolutely, yeah. That is all over Facebook. It's all over social media.
Well, since you're from Australia, I'm sure you've kept up with this over time a lot more than a lot of our listeners. So perhaps you could fill us in on what you know about the history of this.
I can tell you what I know, and that's from starting to research like 10 years ago into the New World Order and things like that. I come across David Icke talking about world government, and there's going to be different regions and different unions. So obviously I look at Australia, and we are coupled in with Asia. So China and Australia are in the same region that were governed by the same region.
You guys realize we played Midnight Oil just by random chance before you went on?
See, there's the beauty of Keck working for us.
Unbelievable.
Pepe smiles upon us this day.
Completely random. Completely. I said, oh, this will be a cool song to play right before we start. Unbelievable.
That was a great choice, Stephen.
Hey, Stephen, I saw your other message there. You were trying to find a time slot that could work. Is that right?
I was trying to find a time slot. I was offering a time slot. I'm just looking at the schedule, and I'm just saying this slot on Friday is open, which is 24 hours from whatever this time was. I'm thinking on Australia, if it was, 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. I don't know what's available, how convenient it is not. But that's prime time USA.
It actually is a bit convenient, Stephen. It's early in the morning, so you can wake up and not really be engrossed in the news yet. So then you can sort of
you can slowly become enraged as you read it to the audience. But
I like it.
But anyway, that is wide open. So, the rest is business. It's just a matter of getting a good photograph and coming up with a name for the show and creating some artwork, and that's it.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and mute.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think I'll just get back to talking about APEC. That's the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, and that's what me and my friends used to think was the framework for the Asian Union that was going to link in with the American Union and the African Union. What is the other one? I've forgotten about the other one because things have changed so much that we're not hearing about these unions too much anymore, especially with Trump trying to renegotiate NAFTA, which is, love that. But the APEC, in 2007, we had a big world leaders conference when Bush was still president. He came to Sydney. They put a huge fence up around just the city. And they had huge terrorism security, and And that was actually shown to be a farce. That was hilarious with the Chaser Boys, the comedy group in Australia, and they dressed up as a different country. They had limousines and security and everything, and they just went straight through all the security. They just let them through, didn't even check. But yeah, we went there. That was when I was still involved with protest groups. So basically, I got there and I found out.
I'm really sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you. There's just something I need to throw out there really quick because I don't know if we've mentioned it, but I believe we're simulcasting on the other network. You know, what is it? Wolf Spirit. Okay, I just want to let you know that I believe. Well, okay, Wolf Spirit, of course, is situated in the UK. All right, and of course, internet radio goes all over. But I thought you'd appreciate that, so I just wanted to throw that out there real quick, so you can have the opportunity to give a shout out to JP and everybody at Wolf Spirit. Okay, talk to you later.
Okay.
Yeah, g'day, Wolf Spirit.
Excellent. And for me as well, JP. All right, now, yeah, okay, to all of you listeners at Truth Cat Radio and Wolf Spirit Radio, I don't know, where were you going then with that thought, Jeff?
I was just going to make a point that I, as someone who just wanted to be part of protests and not sure what I wanted at all, still knew that I was still trying to figure out what I thought about politics. Because I was lucky enough to come across Jordan Maxwell early on, and he said things like, I understand that I don't know anything, and I'm just trying my best to find out the truth. So I went to protests thinking I don't know anything about left or right or Labour or Liberal, which is our two main parties. And then you end up getting, taken over by socialism in a nutshell, because the socialists run the protests. All these different groups come together and then you say, I want to go to this march, and the march it's called Stop Bush. This is back in 2007. I'm just giving you an example. The march is called Stop Bush, like no Iraq War. It says nothing about. Well, actually, at the bottom of the poster, it will say the Socialist Alliance, but no one, you don't pay any attention to that. They're the ones gathering all the different groups up and putting them into these huge entire marches. So there is manipulation going on, and then who funds these groups? That's the different. They're the things that you don't know about when you just want to go and protest. Especially when you're a lot younger. Like I was in my early 20s, and I had no idea about these all different types of people trying to manipulate all the people in the march to join their group.
Well, I mean, in the case of the Iraq War, I mean, I can't really criticize people who were against it, because that was an unnecessary war, and one of the West's wars of conquest, really. Well, I mean,
but it's funny. That just reminds me. Sorry to cut you off, Richard.
No, yeah.
That just reminded me of when the Iraq War happened. I was actually on. I had a radio show back then, and I started talking about how Iraq has nothing to do with 9/11, absolutely nothing to do with it. But we're going to go to war with them. Why? And as soon as I started saying that, I got told, we're actually sponsored by. We get some funding from the government, so we would prefer if you don't. Say bad things about them because they might stop the funding for our radio station. It's actually, from a corporate point of view, it is just reasonable. But of course, from a freedom point of view, I said no. I'm going to keep talking about it, and so that was my last show.
And regarding the the question I had about China's influence, like financial influence on Australia. I don't know. Would you say that you've heard the same sort of things, that it's that their ownership of assets, property, and such has grown considerably in recent decades?
Yeah, it has, or at least the awareness of Chinese ownership has grown. I'm not sure in the past how much there's been, but the last couple of years, it just seems like they're buying up as much as they can here, which is, I mean, investment is great, but this is a communist country. It's very delicate when you're working with people. If they want to, we definitely have different views of what freedom is in China and Australia. Definitely very different. We have proper daycare when we don't chain children to light poles for daycare.
Well, definitely caring about all of humanity, looking out for the good of the many rather than the good of the few, would basically be what it is to be anti-globalist. Because I mean the globalists is looking out for the good of the few. Those with the most money at the top, and pushing toward a more and more extreme version of that, financially, and with more and more totalitarian control as time goes on. But when you get to this topic of globalism, it can be very confusing to see who's on what side, especially when you come to the level of nation states. I mean, in some regards, Putin, for example, seems very anti-globalist, in that he's, I don't know, he's supports an
anti-globalist but pro-mafia. So I'm not quite sure about Putin.
Because I mean, right? Because I mean, he's against like a lot of like the GMOs and these sort of things, empowering his citizens in a lot of these kind of ways, and as far as their wealth, has a state-run central bank rather than a private central bank. Even though there is one, it's state-run. So I mean, it's not, it's not exploiting the people, and so that's significant, and supports these countries that are also, of the same. Well, I mean, you have Iran, even Syria, I think, and then North Korea. I mean, that is a unifying factor. That there isn't a private central bank that is controlling them. And throughout history, we've seen so much of that. But so I mean, yeah, Russia can be against these things and GMOs, but then I hear the opinions of others, such as this gentleman who was on my show about a month ago from Estonia, a very small country, in northern Europe, and very close to Russia, and he said, I mean, they see Russia as more still. A nation of conquest, and that a lot of the states that are in what is currently Russia, more deservingly should be their own sovereign nations, and that's what Estonia would like to see preserved for themselves, far into the future, and not have that same fate. But I don't know. I mean, as of recent, it seems like a lot of mergings with Russia have been voluntary. Regardless of what the Western media may try to spin it as. So I don't know. There are different points of view. At the very least, Putin seems less globalist at the current time period for what matters at this point in the chess game, right?
Yeah, that's right. We don't know what his end goal is, of course, but we don't know what anyone's is except our own. So all you can do is watch and try to make sense of it. And from what you what we all see, Putin has been saying the things that we've wanted our presidents to say, like no GMO. That is one of the such a huge thing, because you look around and you see all these people with their bodies just clogged up, completely clogged up, and they can't lose any weight, and it's because of things that are in the food that doesn't have to be there. And so what that is amazing about Putin, he's just saved the health of his whole entire people by doing that. But then now there's huge problems in Crimea, and like Estonia, people, different countries want their independence. So I mean, I guess it depends on what's happened with the Soviet Union back in the day, how much territory they conquered, and who they took over against their will. I suppose there's a case that someone like a country like Estonia would have, if I'm getting the history correct.
Well, yes. I mean, but yeah, well, I mean, they can always rewrite the borders of countries along with the rest of the history, to suit the victors in the aftermath. I mean, I've heard a similar account actually regarding Poland and World War II, that the portion of Poland that was invaded by Hitler, if you look on an earlier historic map of Germany and Poland, that belonged to Germany. If you look before the two wars and before, a lot of unfair agreements and redrawn border lines occurred and were imposed upon Germany. And so in a lot of sense, in a lot of the true interpretation, Hitler, came into, re-entered a portion of Poland that used to be Germany, took it back, so to speak, as a statement to certain world powers that were against him. But I mean, I mean, the Estonia situation, they do still have their independence at the moment, is from what I understand. He's just concerned, that stays the case into the future, because he looks at so many other nations nearby there, I guess, that are now part of Russia and in the past were sovereign. But as far as the situation with portions of the Ukraine and that, I mean, from what I understand, that these people voluntarily wanted to rejoin with Russia, and it's just been the West's propaganda trying to, tell you otherwise.
Right. Yeah. The West trying to tell Russia what they can do. It's just basically strong arming, isn't it? It's the bully in the playground. I'm not sure. I can't know what happens behind the scenes. If like, I used to think that all world leaders were all Freemasons and they just all talk to each other, and everything they say on television is just a TV show just for us. Like nothing means anything what they say. But now I've come to see that no, the world is not completely, it's not complete fantasy. There's the real things that happen in the world. So that's one step you got to get past. But yeah, I don't know if they're all in on it together, but if you can only take the world as you can see it. So it seems that Putin or Russia would oppose being taken over by the Western world, which is fine. Like if we just want to have a free society, we can have that, and we do have that in our own countries. We don't need to take over the entire world. If other countries want to live life the way they want to live, then that is up to them. And if the population want to have a revolution and change dictators or change governments, then that's entirely up to them. I don't think we should have anything to do with regime change or anything like that, unless it's a direct threat to us, which is, and then you have to assess whether they are or not.
Right, and so much of the West's wars on terror have been nothing more than wars of conquest, and just battles over enforcing the role of the U.S. dollar internationally. Now we have a strong threat in the form of Russia and China. I mean, they've been merging on this international global trading system that's now going to be an alternative to SWIFT, which is the U.S. dollar-based trading system that was the only option in the past. And so now, and I know that they're backing everything with gold now, which is something that the the Federal Reserve and I'm sure the over in Europe as well, it can't match and has them very nervous. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of financial interests behind most all of these war agendas, but I don't know. Most people don't follow where all the motivations are actually stemming from to see that's really what sparks 99.9% of all of this. And I mean,
that's right. And then after World War II, the US dollar reigned supreme. The US ruled the world basically with economics. Everyone had to use the US dollar as the base currency.
And now with just the entire connected global economy grinding a bit to a halt because all the money is greedily been sucked to the top. Where I mean, the Baltic Dry Index, which is the measure of just all the raw materials of anything and everything that are shipped around the world, that's at an all-time low in recent years here, and that's a strong indication of an economy, a global economy that's been grinding to a halt. The people are just struggling to pay the bills and have food on the table if they're lucky, and then you have nothing in between, and no middle class, and then you have the excessively wealthy. Now just even their definitions of what's lower class, middle class, and upper class are ridiculous. They're saying, just brackets that don't even make sense anymore to justify the books, basically. But the wealth inequality is becoming excessive. I don't know how much longer it can last before the whole system collapses. That's why people think that this World War III, even Paul Craig Roberts claiming this war with Russia and China, is about starting a war to justify an economic collapse. So you have a war to blame it on. Once the economic collapse happens before that war, then the people are going to look to the government and they're going to want a big change. And that's what the people in power are fearing the most.
Absolutely. The totalitarian tiptoe.
Yeah, no, I like that description. Yeah, David Icke, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it was so good to watch his shows and talks back 10 years ago for me, because now I understand what's happening a lot more in the world today from what David Icke was saying 10 years ago. Same with Alex Jones.
Yeah. I definitely do appreciate a lot of what David has had to say and a few others. Alex, to some extent, he has changed more over recent times, and the
definitely.
more
If you're not pro-Trump, then you won't listen to Alex Jones as long.
Well, now he's been treated favorably enough by this administration where he wants to acknowledge that they can do no wrong or see them as doing no wrong. I don't know. He claims to still be
so, especially when he's got press passes for going into the White House press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things have changed for InfoWars. So, he's trying to feel out where he is. But I understand that Alex he will always be himself. So whatever he tries to do, even if he thinks, oh, I'm going to not say anything sometimes about the bad things that are done, so I can keep working with the White House. But
but he's had
that's just the thought.
He has had that agenda to some extent all along. I mean, there are some topics he doesn't cover, some places he just won't ever go. You know,
That's
I mean,
true.
he has no problem labeling or fingering Saudi Arabia as a scapegoat for anything and everything. But of course, he'll never bring up Israel. He'll never talk about Israel in any. I mean, you know, occasionally he'll try to sound unbiased about some things just for the record, you know, just for appearances. But I mean, he's definitely very pro-Israel, and well, there are a lot of lobbyists that do affect a lot of the war agendas related to that country, and you know, help explain a good portion of why we're always so much in that part of the world. You know, a little more than other parts of the world, basically. But
that's right.
And then of course the same with Trump. I mean, you know, a lot of people think he's a little too naive when it comes to the influence of these sort of influences of foreign influence from the Israeli lobbyists, you know, related groups, and how much that does affect the decisions for international policy, war policy. So
I want to think that it's sorry, Richard, but I just want to think that it's they're picking their battles because they have such an enormous task ahead of them. Like Alex Jones has to talk about everything that he talks about, and then as soon as you hit talking about Israel, then it's the pushback that you get from people like the ADL, and they are some of the most powerful groups in America and even the world. So what I want to think is that he just shies away from that to stay away from that so he can talk about his other things. Well, same with Trump. But then you think, oh, Trump's got his grandchildren. I think they're all Jewish now.
Yeah, I heard that he admits that some are, at least. But yeah, that
nothing against Jewish people at all. It's always the elite at the top of every group.
Yeah, extreme elitist, a Zionist in that case, but not every single
political
person.
Ideology.
Right. But I mean, that is a strong factor when it does come to things like international policy and war agendas. And that is a strong example of something Alex won't touch. A lot of people do see it as also related a lot, you know, Zionism to the just the banking systems and, you know, the just indentured servitude that they have the nation states under. You know, but you know, a lot of people argue over how much, you know, it's related. They'll say, you know, it's, you know, well, I mean, you'll get any and every opinion, you know. I mean, but yeah, the topic of
okay, I get to give my opinion.
Okay, Stephen, sure. Because I noticed the title of your show tonight.
Well, I love that. That's really great. The Antifa stuff. I'm going to get really into it, the history. But I actually know a little bit more about the history than most people know, because it's like it actually started in Lithuania. And we had our friend, what's his face? You know, from one of our shows. Gosh, I can't remember his name right now. But anyway, the guy that went to Donbass from Lithuania, he told us all about that. But Donald Trump, you know,
David Simpson.
No, not David Simpson. He's a Donbass guy. But before that, you know, the one with the accent, you know, that guy. Anyway, I can't remember his name. But the thing is Ivanka, you're right. Donald Trump is he's a good guy and all that, but he's too impulsive, and his puppet strings are being pulled by Ivanka, whose puppet strings are being pulled by Jared Kushner. And Jared Kushner has absolutely no business being anywhere near the White House. That talk about a backdoor sneak in by the forces of evil. That's exactly what he is. And I don't care how mild he looks and how sweet he is with his children, staying next to, Ivanka, who everybody seems to be in love with. It's like, it's ridiculous. He's not as bad as Hillary. Nothing they could do would be as bad as the blood-sucking Hillary vampires. But these neocons are just as evil, and they're going to get their fingers in there. The Zionist New World Order is going to get their fingers in there no matter what. So, and their man in the White House right now is Jared Kushner, and that guy has got to go. That's my opinion.
I think you're right about that, Stephen. Javanka has to go.
Ivanka. Did you just make that up right now? That was kind of a...
No, I heard that yesterday. I have to admit.
Javanka. Yeah, no, seriously, that team of Jared and Javanka, his wife, Kushner's wife, Mrs. Kushner, needs to get the hell out of the White House. That's what needs to happen ASAP. And you know what? We're screwed, because as long as that's in the family, they're going to be having, family dinners where he's going to be directing policy through her. Not cool. So we should have seen that coming a little stronger, but this guy was, and look at how close Jared Kushner is to damn Soros. I mean, my God, Soros has got his man in the White House now, one way or the other. It's really bad. And who knows? They could be trying to groom Kushner for a White House spot.
That's right. He's getting the experience now, isn't he?
Think about that. If they want Ivanka as a first lady, perhaps, maybe not as president, maybe as first lady. Who knows, right? Don't want to throw that out there to the universe.
That's a bad thought, Stephen. No.
All right, I'm going to relax a little bit. You only got a few minutes before I got to start, so I'm going to relax a little bit.
Okay.
Right, great. I think you're right about Ivanka, Stephen, but I want to think that Trump knows what he's doing with his own family, at least. So he's going to listen to everything Ivanka says to him. Of course he is. She's his daughter and definitely his pride and joy. We all know that. But he's going to listen, and he's going to decide for himself. That's what I would do with my own daughter.
Well, it's just, for instance, the Syria thing, though. Sorry for butting back in, but
absolutely.
We have friends in Damascus, and we've all lived through 4 years of this war now, and we've been watching it and we fought really hard to keep Obama from bombing. We had one of our most successful campaigns was to stop that from happening, and here we go, But see, during that 4-year period of time, we've seen many of these fake gassings get thrown out by the same people. And this particular false flag, this particular gassing that took place in Idlib, there was nothing substantially different from it to any of the others. In fact, the reality is that it wasn't sarin or anything like that. It was actually chlorine. These people just take what they use for their local water processing plants, and they create chlorine gas, and that's what they use to kill these children. Half of these children are just strangled anyway. But
and we swim in that.
Yeah, and we swim in that. But the thing is what really struck me was just, even with Obama, somebody was just dying to bomb under any excuse. He had to hold back because of public opinion. And even all these false flags weren't enough to get him to overcome the public opinion to do it. And yet Trump didn't even screw around. Just as soon as that stupid false flag happened, Ivanka, "Oh, daddy, the children." And he said, "Oh, I got this one. I got it, girl." And he took care of it. And, very, very disappointing. Very disappointing, because that's, we would like to think that he has a little more restraint, but apparently not, if she's that powerful.
Well, there's one thing that makes me step back and go, hang on, I think we're going to know more about this in a few months, because I heard Mike Cernovich talking about this just a few days ago. He says the attack, the false flag attack, it is a false flag attack, at least from we were lied to what it was. It wasn't even sarin gas. But anyway, Mike Cernovich is saying that the attack came out of Saudi Arabia, or it was orchestrated through Saudi Arabia.
Well, Saudi Arabia supplied the chlorine.
There you go. So, what implications does that have? That means that it wasn't Assad. So now Trump is trying to play. He's trying to be honest with the world. So he's said, "I can't believe this. This has changed my opinion of Assad. I didn't realize he was like this. Now I'm going to teach him a lesson." Now, but that was then. And now if it comes out that it wasn't Assad, now Trump says, "Listen, I couldn't believe it before." And it turns out that it's not true. And it's actually Saudi Arabia. And no one's been talking about Saudi Arabia for a long time. So,
I have trouble believing that Trump's naive enough to have ever thought that Assad actually did do that to his own people, with absolutely nothing to gain from it. It was a ridiculous story from the start, and it's the same story they've used a few times over the years now, and been proven false in the past. So I mean, if he has only people around him who are full of propaganda for the West's warmonger machine, and he has no one around him giving him an alternative view, an independent media view whatsoever, anything contrasting, and is that naive and in his own Washington war echo chamber, I don't know. I have trouble believing that he didn't know from the start that, okay, this is what you have to say to the people. This is what you have to act like you believe.
Absolutely. I'm actually saying I think he did know. I think he knew from the start that it wasn't Assad, but he is just being Mr. President of the perception that's out in the world of, the mainstream media is pushing all this propaganda. So now Trump, because that's what made him be accepted by a lot of different people. This action of bombing the airfield in Syria, and it turns out that he warned the soldiers that were at the airfield to leave before he did it. So I think in a few months we're gonna find out there's a lot more to the story, and I'm especially emboldened by the fact that before in the campaign Trump was talking about the 9/11 Commission report and how he was saying you're probably going to find out that Saudi Arabia had a lot to do with it. So I'm waiting for that to come out, and I think he's actually got a game plan that's going to expose a lot of the things that Saudi Arabia are doing.
Well, I mean, that is a case where I've always seen Saudi Arabia being blamed in place of Mossad, of Israel. I don't buy that Saudi Arabia was behind 9/11. I'm thoroughly convinced that it was Israel, it was Mossad agents, and that is a classic example of Saudi Arabia being the scapegoat. When I was mentioning some of the tendencies, Alex Jones gets to steer things toward them to blame. That would be a good example of that. I don't know.
Sorry to cut you off again. My point of view would be, as like I was saying before, about Alex doesn't talk about Israel very much, but he will talk about Israel's proxies. So it's a way of getting around the ADL, perhaps. I mean, we all know how much resistance David Icke has gotten from the ADL when he's not racist against Jewish people or any bigoted, anything like that. But he's gotten the worst vitriol from people like the ADL who are very powerful. So, like, I understand that I'm just going on faith, but I've listened to Alex Jones for over 10 years now, and I honestly will give him a bit more leeway with this. But yeah, that's right. Israel is behind, and it's the elite people of Israel. of course, just like every country. But they are definitely behind so many things that we don't even realize.
Yes, and as far as the different attitudes toward Trump, you are in Australia, but you've been following Trump a lot. I mean, are a lot of Australians behind Trump at this point? Are you finding?
I think for starters, you don't talk about it with anyone because in front of many people, because you know that someone is going to look up and think that you're a racist or something. Whatever the television says, there's someone in the room that thinks what the television says. So people don't speak about it that much.
All right. So Trump is associated with racism quite a bit over there.
Definitely. That's the big thing. Racism is the big thing in Australia. If someone doesn't like you, all they have to say is you're a racist, and that's it. You're finished.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't aware he had that. There was that strong an association that had been built with him, and that. He's not. It's been the corporate media and the way they've spun things to make him come off in these ways. A lot of it has to do with his stance on immigration. And the where.
Yeah. Yeah, no one seems to know what illegal immigrant means.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he's
illegal.
against.
It's not
Right,
the immigrants.
Right, he's for immigrants who take the legal means of, establishing citizenship. It's just the people who are illegally doing it. And then we've heard every type of case, people trying to say that it's against their constitutional rights. They're illegal immigrants who are not, we're not citizens, but no, it's against their U.S. constitutional rights. So that we've heard every story from the left imaginable. That's been propagated. It's pretty entertaining at times. Listen, we only got a couple minutes left here. I want to thank you again for coming on, and look forward to hearing what you're going to be bringing for our listeners in the future as well here. If you just want to have one more mention of your website, your current website, where people can go to contact you or for more of what you do.
Yeah, sure. Anyone can go to theopenedmind.biz. That's my website. I've just have that up there as a billboard. All my stuff is just there to look at. It's not always being updated, but everything's there waiting for you. And you can look on YouTube for hashtag the Chardonnay Times. Chardonnay, you have to listen to this song. It's,
I love it.
Anthem.
I love it.
Oh yeah, and all the different remixes too. They're all coming out. It's very spicy. But yeah, look for the Chardonnay Times on YouTube and Facebook, and apart from that, I would say go if you want to know a lot of news that you're not getting. Have a look on Reddit. Look at the Donald subreddit on. Yeah, I think you'll be.
Or tune in to Truth Cat Radio, right? Huh?
Absolutely.
Friday, was it Friday?
I got to thank you and Richard.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Fridays at 8 p.m. Perhaps Eastern, perhaps. Starting Fridays, who knows when? Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe next Friday. Who knows?
Who knows? We'll have to get things sorted out, I believe.
The only sorting is give me a photo and a title, and I'll do the rest.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thanks a lot, Stephen and Richard, for having me on the show and your radio. I really enjoy it, and I'm going to be a regular listener for sure. And I'll actually be listening to your next the show right now, Stephen. I'm going to be very interested in the history of Antifa.
Yeah, you might want to call in, actually, to be honest with you. Stick around. I might bring you in if you want, or you can send me a message if you want to get involved. But
all right, we'll stick around.
Right.
Okay, brilliant.
All right, great.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Richard.
So
Oh, was that your sign off? Richard, that's not your sign off. Okay, I'm going to hang up on
hold on. Let me get my sign off here,
I'm
Stephen.
gonna let
Well,
Richard
thank
do
you,
his
everyone. Until next time, and stick around for Stephen. Until then, transcend the construct. Regards.